Welcome to ZenMadman's day number 32 of Pot Limit Omaha nuttiness of journification. I've got a quite trash hand here in the big blind. There have been two limpers. I'm going to mark that this person limped. We just want to be aware of that. I flopped middle pair with a backdoor flush draw, nothing to get excited about. A turn card of a 5 or a deuce or a 4 of hearts perhaps would give me, some hope. As it is, I basically am gonna win if people check down and the board. I need to make something. But these limp pots, I think we don't really need to get too excited about. I do have an open-ended straight draw now. That would be to the nuts, and I still have that middle pair. So I think this is a decent semi-bluffing hand. I'm just gonna go ahead and pot it. I'm gonna have much more good hands than my opponents are. I think a king is often gonna bet the flop, so my 9 is gonna be good some of the time. And if it's not, it's hard for my opponents to have too much stuff. I'm going to make like a sort of not a thin value bet here, but basically trying to get called by a king. If they have queen 9, ace 9, or somehow made a boat, good for them. But I'm willing to run that risk. All right. Yeah, so it's not 10 yet here, but it is 10 for the people who are watching the stream live, whether you're on Twitch or on YouTube. Welcome. I'm trying to grow my YouTube channel. If you like the videos, please like and subscribe if you want to see more of them. And if you're on Twitch, you can follow and you can subscribe on Twitch now as well. If you have Prime, it's free. I'm gonna fold this hand here. And yeah, so I've been doing the same thing this is the 32nd day. So it's been a full month, like an actual month of 31 consecutive days. Waking up around 9, although some days much earlier. And doing, a morning routine to get myself into just a good frame of mind for the day, sort of help myself out physically. And, I've dropped 12 pounds, actually, which I still have a way to go to feel what feels like a healthy weight for me. It's less about the number and more about just how I feel physically. I used to be extremely active, exercising 6, 7, sometimes even 8 days a week. And this is, king, queen, suited, awesome, 7 deuce, not so awesome. So I'm going to fold it because of the 7 deuce. This player is playing every hand, so that's usually a good sign. It's usually a good thing. And arguably, generally I'm going to tighten up based on, there's a range of hands I would raise from here in the cutoff. And when someone limps, I'm going to use a tighter range of hands. But the looser that limper is, the less tighter that range will get. And yeah, we can pay attention to this hand. We can also talk about yeah, we'll get back to other stuff. Morning. All right, so we had the limp, the raise, the call from the blind from another loose player, right? We've got two very loose players at this table that we can see so far, which is excellent. The flop favors a raiser's range, so they're going to see bet there pretty often. They're going to have all the ace-ace combos, king-king, a lot of ace-king as well. When they check it back, anyone can have queen-10. Queen-10's a pretty reasonable holding for anybody. This player could have had a hand like ace-queen-10 or, I don't know. Again, anybody kind of could have some spades here because they came in the back door and nobody bet the flop. So queen high spades against 6 high spades. I wonder if the other person did have that queen 10. Let's take a look when they bet. They did not. They had 10, 10, 7, 5, which would be generally regarded as a very good bluffing hand. This is kind of okay-ish looking, but I think it's just a little bit too weak. So the 10, 10 made it harder for someone to have queen 10. Against these types of opponents, though, I'm not so sure about betting there on the turn. And if you do, maybe going a little bigger, but I get where they're coming from. They had good blockers. They took a shot at it. It didn't work out. The ethical panda says hello, and I replied back morning, which was strictly true when I sent the message. Even in Central Time, it was 11:59. These are the sort of things that I think about. I don't know. I've always just been very kind of detail focused in some ways. I like to draw connections between things. I guess that's a connection between time zones, and Twitch feels very time travel-y, which is that's a segue to the Loki show, which I won't give any spoilers for. Never any spoilers on a poker stream. Please, in the chat too, no spoilers. But we're gonna do a podcast. I think a live stream podcast, probably on the Ethical Pandas channel. So if you want to check that out, go ahead, drop them a follow on twitch.tv/theethicalpanda. They stream PLO as well, like PLO10, and we're working on trying to improve. I mean, we're both working to improve our games, obviously in somewhat different places, but they do that and chat about stuff. I've thought about like maybe just chatting about more stuff and doing kind of more of a laid back stream where I play like 3 tables, and when I'm in a hand, it's like, okay, we're just going to talk about the hand now. So right now we're going to talk about the hand. I have King 9 4-3, double suited. What we could call double suited trash. I mean, I do have a king high suit, which is nice, but a 4 and a 3 in the low jack, we're just not going to play it. But then kind of being like, all right, now we'll chill until there's another hand, right? Because poker is like baseball, right? Baseball, I've heard baseball described as a good date movie, but it's also a good hang movie. I haven't heard it described as a movie. A good date sport. But I think also it's a good like hang sport where you can just kind of hang out and follow. There's breaks in the action. There's substantial breaks in the action. So even if you're like totally focused every time a pitch is thrown, you've got 30 seconds between pitches a lot of the time, and then you've got all those half inning breaks. Like in poker, there's so much time spent folding and then waiting for the next hand. Personally, my favorite live poker games are always the ones where there's people I enjoy chatting with. Now, there's something to be said for like really locking in and 100% focusing on every hand. That was originally kind of what I was thinking to do with the stream. I think that would make for really good YouTube videos, and I might transition to doing that, to using that format for YouTube. But I'm a bit skeptical that that's going to make for a good stream, because I think a good stream often has a higher level of interactivity. Doesn't necessarily have to. But, as I get more viewers and more people chatting, I find that I want to interact more. So on this hand, queens, I didn't want to raise kind of garbage queens against a limper. I do have the nut blocker, and I could just go ahead and start betting. But now that they've checked it back, now I feel a little more like they probably don't have a flush, and I'm just going to say, just fold, give me the pot. So contrast this situation where I was saying, well, I don't know whether that person should have done the blocker bet there. Here I'm up against one opponent. There they were up against 2 opponents. It's a lot easier to get one opponent to fold than 2. So I think that affects things. Again, that's not to like really criticize their play and say it was necessarily wrong. It might have been great. I don't know. But there are, often there's indications and counter indications. The indications were they were blocking the nuts with 2 of their cards. The counter indications were they had 2 loose opponents against them. Of course, loose opponents will have a lot of junk in their range. The question is just whether those are the types of loose opponents who will fold that junk. You certainly don't want to fall into the trap of being like, I'm never going to bluff a loose player. You just want to say more, I don't want to spend a bunch of I don't want to try to bluff a loose player off a strong hand is what I think I want to mostly, or a strong draw, right? I want to try to bluff them off just their air. Just get out the garbage hands. 10, 9, 8, 7. So I didn't comment on the 10, 10, 9, 6 single suited. There's just not a lot of single suited 10s I think that we play in that spot. This one I will go ahead and raise it up. I think overlimping might be reasonable as well with, I could get a 3-way pot against kind of loose players. Here I'm going to get a heads up pot against a loose player. I'm going to flop a wrap, but there's a straight draw on board. So how many outs do I really have? I have a 4, a 7, an 8, or a 9. That's going to be 13 outs, but 3 of those are clubs, so I have 10 outs to the nuts. I'm going to go ahead and put in 1 bet on the flop. I would really rather have a pair here. And now I have a pair. Yay! And now a jack also gives me a straight. However, I'm not going to try and barrel them off of anything. I do have more outs technically. Fewer of these are to the nuts though now, right? Like a 9 doesn't give me the nuts, an 8 doesn't give me the nuts. A 10 gives me something interesting. I think they're going to have a lot of flush draws here. I'm not going to try and eke out a value bet. I have one club blocker, which is nice, but I think a lot of their check calls on the flop are going to be flush draws. But if they have a queen, I just outdrew them. And, oh wow, I bet the flop for value. They had 9 high, I had 10 high. Sick value, thin value. The Ethical Panda has dropped the time and location of our upcoming stream in the chat. Okay. Okay. So queen, queen, ace. Often these are good components to a 3-betting hand. However, there's a loose limper that I like to play pots with, and there's another. That small blind isn't that loose. I'm gonna flat this. I do think it's worth flatting. I have the suited ace. The wheel card goes with the ace. It's better than having like a 6 or a 7, I believe. I'm not sure if an 8 would be better, but this, that is an interesting flop. Okay, I'm ahead of ace ace. I'm behind ace 10 and king king. That's it. So I have a third nuts. Middle set I think is very interesting here. Let's see, what do I want to do? Half pot bet. I think that's a bet I can call. I am blocking the nuts, but I think they're going to have the nuts or second nuts fairly often when they lead out here. I don't think they have a lot of king king, and I think my queen queen. Now my queen queen is the third nuts, right? I'm losing to jack jack and king king. Hard to have jack jack. And I did think that they had a straight, so I'm going to bet on the smaller side, try and get value from a straight. And if they want to play back at me, first there will be some crying, and then there might be some calling, or some hero folding, but probably not hero fold. I don't know. That's kind of a gross spot if they check raise me. I could have checked it back also. Is an interesting. I'm gonna mark that hand first. Let's mark this person as open limping, and pre-flop and review. And as always, anyone who has any questions about any of the hands or comments, feel free to make those in the chat or in the comments below if you're on YouTube. And just include the hole cards that I had, and if you're on YouTube, the timestamp would be incredibly helpful. As it makes it a lot easier to just go to the timestamp and be like, okay, this is what they had a question about. I can look at the hand again and answer questions, give further thought, and we can all grow together. So yeah, this player. Oh, so first about my hands, queen 10 9 8. Like if I'm on the button, I'm like, oh cool, I have queen 10 9 8. But suited to the 10 with the gap at the top, I just make worse straight draws than with the gap at the bottom, less nuttiness. So in the low jack, I'm going to give that one up. This player has been showing some, loose passive tendencies, but overall their stats are not way out of line or anything. So, they limped one hand. I'm going to kind of think that they're probably kind of reasonable, but probably not like an online crusher. That's the spectrum. Similarly, the player on my left has open limped one hand and played like no other hands. That's the only hand they've played. So we're not looking at those players like, oh, I'm gonna get all their chips. I'd love to get all their chips, but it seems like they're not entering every pot like our friend in seat 5. So 3-4, like I guess anybody can have that. The big blind has a pretty strong case for having some strong hands here. No one should have king king. Any of the 2-pair combos are reasonable for a big blind because they haven't voluntarily done anything yet. They basically just been check, check, check. Having said that, having checked 3 times, we can kind of shave off a lot of the best hands from their range unless they're trying to slow play, the nuts, like 3-4, and they just don't think anybody has anything, so they want someone else to bet. All right, so now we get another limp from person on our left. Flop, just nothing. And this is this tiny rundown where it's like, there's some great flops for this hand. But seeing a free flop is very nice, and I certainly wouldn't have called. I would not have called had somebody raised coming in. I'm going to fold. I'm going to check, and then somebody's probably going to bet. I really need to hope that the board bricks out and my opponents have... okay, now I have a straight if I can use 3 cards from my hand. But I can beat 6, 5, 3 deuce and 6, 4, 3 deuce. Those are the only hands. So I have the 3rd nut low, actually, in this spot. Or if you're playing regular, Omaha, the 2nd nut low with the deuce 4 after the deuce 3. We have a question from the Ethical Panda. Wow, okay, yeah, they flopped pretty good there. And then the turn was just like the worst. For review, Queen, Queen, Ace 3. Would you have 3-bet if you only had 2 clubs? No. And I'll talk about that in the review more, but mostly it was the situation that led me not to 3-bet because of who I wanted to be in the pot, right? That was what, we might maybe kind of more of an exploitative adjustment rather than a like a pure GTO, like, oh, this is definitely what I'm supposed to do in this spot. I will look that hand up for pre-flop though. And here just, ace ace, 10-5. The 10 and the 5 are suited. It would be nice to be suited to an ace, but this hand is just value. All right, we're just trying to get value. It would be nice if the player on our left like just jammed with those chips and then we could come back over the top if someone flatted, but I'm actually going to check fold a lot of flops, and I think that's something to like mentally prepare for. Like this one. This one, I have the nut flush blocker and I have a nut blocker with the 10, right? I'm blocking Jack 10 and I have backdoor hearts, but out of position 3 ways. None of the pair, stuff going on. I mean, if someone bets like $2 or $3 or something, I'll certainly call that because I do have nut outs. And if I turned an ace, that would be pretty good, right? I'd be beating anything but Jack 10, and I blocked Jack 10 a little bit. But I think it's important to kind of mentally prepare ourselves like, yeah, I've got aces, I'm pushing an equity edge pre-flop, but there's a lot of flops out there, and there's 8 cards against me. So if I don't catch any improvement on the flop, and it's not some like really disconnected flop that's hard for people to hit, I'm gonna check a lot. And here now any queen beats me, but king 9, I just counterfeited them. My hand I think got a little stronger, but I'm not sure. The fact that my opponents both checked made my hand stronger relative to their ranges, and now the ace double paired. So now we have queens and 9s, and I can beat a king, and I can beat air. And my opponents have a lot of air. I would expect them to value bet a 9, a queen. Like, basically the only thing I'm worried that somebody has now if they bet is a 9. Because maybe, like, king 9. But I feel like I'm kind of, if somebody bets here, I'm gonna give them a little side eye, and then, we'll see how big they bet. But I win, right? And that's the thing. Like, when we're like, oh, this is a bad flop for me, I can just check fold. Like, sometimes they don't bet. And sometimes we win. Let's see what cards were up against us. There was 10, 7, 6, 5. So they just had no pair, no draw the whole time. And then there was Jack 8, 7, 4, which I guess they needed a 10 to make a straight. And they had like backdoor hearts or something. So, I gave my opponents chances to, not really too much of a chance to draw out on me because they didn't have any draws, but chances to take the pot away. And against observant players, like that can be, you can get exploited that way. That said, maybe there's not that much to do if we don't have a good hand, right? But against players like those, like they're just like, yeah, I don't have anything. Let's go. Let's see the next hand. Although that one player was checking really slowly every time. But so I think, we get to win some pots, especially the lower the stakes, the easier it is to win with kind of marginal made hands out of position. At higher stakes, that gets more and more difficult and more expensive to try to take those hands to showdown. But at lower stakes, I've found often people will just let us get showdowns in spots where they shouldn't, where they should, somebody could take a shot, right? And it seems pretty clear, like, I've got a lot of ace-ace, and that's a board where you can probably get me to fold a lot of my ace-ace. Granted, I could have played king-king that way, maybe, where I'm like, okay, there's a straight, and if I didn't have any straight blockers, I check flop, and then I turn a boat, so I'm like, okay, let's see if I can check raise someone. It doesn't work out. So I certainly, could have been trapping with something like that, or top 2 pair, for that matter. But yeah, at lower stakes, you just get to realize your equity more, or more broadly speaking, against passive players, you get to realize equity a lot more. So yeah, this is a fairly dynamic board here. And I guess there was a pre-flop raise. Who was the raiser? Was it the big blind? I missed it. It must have been the small or the big. This is, not a fantastic board for something like aces, but there's tons of rundowns that somebody could raise that really smash this. The turn changed the nuts and the river changed the nuts again. I would guess that this person usually has a straight. If they don't have a straight, they've got some like jack with spades. Okay, so they turned the nuts and they rivered the nuts. And on the flop, they had top pair, open-ended straight draw, backdoor flush draw, and then re-outs to a bigger straight after they turned the nuts. So nice hand them. Let's take a look at what they got called down by, right? I think I'm gonna do an episode where I download all the hands from with hole cards revealed, and then just scroll through. I think this is not. Oh, Oh, they left and they left. The table's falling apart. We'll talk shortly about. I'm gonna fold. This might be too tight. I'm not sure. Let's mark it. Let's wait. Okay. We will tag that hand just for pre-flop, just to kind of check up. I think if it was gap at the bottom instead of gap in the middle, I would have played it here. Again, this like small blind open limping spot, I do not have down. I do not have a solid strategy. Not the best flop for my hand. I think I could have raised. I think folding would probably be a little too tight. The limper doesn't have a really wide range from what we've seen so far. I know it says 100, but they have not been playing nearly that many of their hands when we were six-handed. Right now it's 42-16 filtered for 4 to 6-handed, which I changed because I feel like it wasn't really giving us that much useful info when we would go from like 5-handed to 4-handed. I play a lot of 3 and 4-handed in these games, so I think this hand I can fold to a 3-bet, single suited, double suited I would call for sure, double paired I would call. This is some garbage. And let's mark that one as well for a little pre-flop review. What was that other hand? So it was 9-8-4, and they got called down. Someone flopped top 2, and then they added a flush draw on the river. So they got called down by, the board was 9-8-4, queen 10, and somebody bet the river and got called by 9-8. Unfortunately, that player is no longer with us. Their chips are sitting across from us in this person's stack, which I'm sure they're delighted about. And, why should they not be? Good for them. So yeah, that's, maybe we could have had those, but they'll probably come back with some more chips at some other table at some point in time. We're not usually suffering from a dearth of loose passive players in these games. Right now, the table's not fantastic, but let's talk about like seat selection for a moment. On Ignition, there's not really seat selection the way there used to be like on Poker Stars when, eventually people just got Table Ninja and it would just seat them, but like, you would like be scoping out the lobby while playing 4 to 6 tables or more, and then be like, oh, I want to go there, or the seat opens up to the left of the player and you're like, oh, I'm going to leave and I'm going to come back, and then you sit to their left, and it was quite a headache. It was an important skill. It was a critical skill to really get good positions. Here you don't have that same thing, but you can look at tables and think like, how good is this table? Well, player on my left, I don't have that much information about. So far they've been, aggressive when they've entered pots anyway. Player across from me has been pretty tight. So they're not really a problem, but they're not adding a lot to the experience. And this other player number 3, is like, they're a player that I'd probably like to have at the table, but they don't make a table awesome or anything. But there's 2 open seats and they're both on my right. So that's 2 chances for a loose passive player to come and sit down and hopefully, give me their monies. So, dear players, come give me the monies. Okay, I have bottom pair and some backdoors. I think I'm going to check this. I don't hate using this as a bluff, though, because there are a fair number of good turn cards. That wasn't one of them, and I'll just end up going, folding here. But something like half pot on the flop, and then you know, barrel maybe some clubs, some straight draws that I can't actually pick up a good straight draw, right? I can't have an open ender. If I had king 10 and then a jack came, I would need a queen to make the straight, so that's not great. But an ace or a king would have been very nice cards, and a 3. So I think that was a reasonable flop c-betting spot that I passed up. I'm very sort of passive, trappy, circumspect in these games. Probably to a fault is my guess, but I also think I avoid certain bad situations that a lot of players probably don't. Without the suited ace, I'm going to fold. We'll look it up. We'll throw that on the pile of pre-flop things. But yeah, this last month has been really good. You know, I got some affiliate stuff going on. I got in better shape. I think I've definitely improved my PLO game. And I definitely want to keep doing all of those things more. 9986, you know, it's fairly connected, suited to the 9. Not sure about calling a 3-bet out of position here. I do think there's going to be a good number of flops that I'm really going to smash. A decent number anyway, so I will call this. I would much rather be double suited. I would much rather have a flop that was not this one, but, you know, say la whatever. We just fold. And we can mark that one too. And basically, I just mark dozens of hands a day, and then I look them up in the matrix on YouTube. Link in the description below. By this point, I might have an affiliate link in the description below. We shall see. But regardless, I recommend it. It's been an extremely useful tool for me. Suited aces, I don't think we're going to fold a lot of suited aces, but if I have to guess, ace 9 4 deuce is close to the worst suited ace we can have. So, yeah. So I just mark dozens of hands, and I look them up, and day after day, I just get a little better, right? And that's the theme of this series, is just get a little bit better every day. And over time, you see results, right? Like, every day I try to eat a little bit less than I burn in terms of calories. And over time, I lose weight. Recently, it's been pretty rapid because I think my body was, like, out of equilibrium. I was constantly eating when I wasn't hungry, like, just because. And again, ace 9 6 deuce, the 6 and the deuce and the 9, these are not the best combinations of cards, right? Those cards don't go together that well. But yeah, like, I think when, you know, the more, I was saying this earlier in the stream, in the video, I used to exercise almost every single day, and sometimes for just hours on end. And I was teaching Taekwondo, and so I was just standing up and kicking and punching and shouting and using a ton of energy. And my teacher was like, oh, you need to eat more so you get muscle and whatever. So I ate more, and I did get muscle, and I filled out in, I'd say, a positive way in terms of just feeling, you know, I could take a shot better. And in terms of kicking and punching, it was good. But then I stopped doing that as much, and then I moved to California, and, you know, we drive everywhere in California, and that's not great, right? That's not great in terms of health. And so I gained a lot of weight, and I stopped exercising mostly. And so, like, right as the pandemic was starting, I was like, oh, I'll go to the gym and I'll watch a run at once video or some poker video, you know, while on the elliptical or whatever. And that was great for like a month. And then I was like, okay, now I'm just going to stay home for the next 14 months. And so that happened. But, you know, it's hard, like, building a new habit. There's going to be curveballs, right? There's going to be things. I've had blackouts during my stream at night, things that interrupted. And, you know, we've got to find ways to work around them, ways to also not let, I fold this, not suited to the ace, even suited to the ace, I think it's marginal. But to not let these kind of interruptions and things, like, derail us, right? Like, losing one day is fine, but, like, don't make it 2 days, don't make it 3 days, and then a week, and then the habit's gone, right? It's like, for me, it's all about getting to a place where doing the thing is easier than not doing the thing. Where waking up in the morning and doing, you know, my exercises, my meditation, and having a smoothie it just feels normal. And if I don't do that right when I wake up, it feels a little weird because now I've done it for 32 days in a row. And on the stream, it's like waking up and just doing the stream right after I've done that whole morning routine. It just feels natural now. And if I were to not do it, I think I'd have a feeling of like, oh, I'm supposed to be doing something, you know? And garbage, we fold garbage. This is like the second hand this player's raised out of 30. So that doesn't mean they have super strong range. They might have been running cold and they fold it. So they're obviously not just raising aces, or unless they're folding aces. But I think they're probably running cold, and they're probably a somewhat reasonable player playing similar ranges to me. But yeah, like just not letting that one day become 2 days and 5 days, etc., etc. The 3 and the 4 are bad, and we're only suited to the 4. Sugar is indeed the devil. Yes, Kevin E. Poker in the chat. Munches his candy. Hilarious, yeah. Every time I'm like, oh, I'm so tired. Why am I so tired? Not every time, but like half the time it's like, oh, because I just had a whole pint of like cashew milk ice cream. Like, yeah, no wonder. Like, it's not a mystery. For the last month, I've almost entirely cut refined sugars out of my diet anyway. I still have a lot of fruit. I have like berries. I love raspberries. They're in season. I'm like, oh, I'll just eat these. And yes, there's sugars in them, but I find that they don't hit the blood sugar in quite the same way. And they don't have the same kind of like, just like addictive, like, like when I just overload with, with the sugars, like it just conks me out in a way it didn't before. I mean, there'd be like a high and then a low, and now it's like there's a high, boom, like, and so I'm just like, all right, I just can't have that if I want to do anything productive for the rest of the day. If I'm having a day off someday down the future, when I decide to like take days off, like maybe I'll have a pint or maybe 4 ounces. They sold these little 4 ounces Ben and Jerry's non-dairy ice creams in the grocery outlet near me for a while, and like, those were perfect because it's just this little thing and it's like you just open it, you eat it, and that's it. But if I get a pint of ice cream in here, there's not going to be half a pint of ice cream the next day. So I just keep it out of the house now, which is good because my wife also wants to avoid that. So we're just keeping it out of the house. And so far, so good. We'll see how that goes. But the ethical panda says, fine, goes to get my dumbbells while watching. Yes, excellent. At some point, I might add a fitness aspect to the stream. Something maybe to do with the channel points, redeeming channel points, where we can, I'll be like, I want to do a bunch of kicks in a day. So, like, you can redeem channel points and watch me kick like a monkey. I don't know. I don't think monkeys kick, but you know what I'm saying. And I have my little, this thing here for like, this is going to sound horrible, but, like, you just squeeze it like 25 times every day. There, now you can really get the full effect. Doesn't that sound? Yeah. So that's why I don't do it on stream. I've got to do the left side now, though, too. I don't think that was 25. I wasn't counting, but, you can also just do it till you get tired. Grip strength is a big part of punching power, like forearm strength. The best punchers have these, like, Popeye forearms, I think, where it's just, I don't know. And sometimes just these really large fists that are like hammers. Although I guess you don't use a hammer that way. Well, you can, right? I'm not super, construction savvy in terms of renovations and stuff. My Taekwondo teacher he also did contracting, and so he would like build out the Taekwondo school and do a mix of that work himself and hire people. And he's like, oh, just do this. And I'm like, yeah, sure. I did actually board up one of the windows the day after defenestrating someone, kicking them through the window, not through an open window. It's a long story. Maybe we won't put the whole thing on YouTube right now, or Twitch, but yeah, someone went into and partially through a window, and then I grabbed them back and pulled them back into the dojang, and then all the glass fell. It was exciting times. But then the next day I had to it was open. The window was open. It wouldn't close. So instead of like getting new glass, we just put, big giant plywood up and just hammered it in. So, that was fun. That was kind of like construction. Although when I think back, I'm like, I don't think I did that myself. I think I had, I had a lot of help with that. But I hammered some nails. I went to Dyke's Lumberyard and got lumber. All right, 9655. It's a very Hell's Kitchen like location. Right, they've been there since I remember. Top pair, 2 backdoor flush draws, and a pocket pair that like blocks the potential straights. I think I can check this. If the big blind checks, I might bet some turns. Now I do have a boat, right? Not with the 6, but with the 5s. I'll check one more time, and I might try. Like I can't get value here, right? There's no value to be had. I'm gonna bet $1 and hope that the person in the low jack calls me with a king. That's what I'm going for. I'm trying to get called by a king. Oh, they have 10s. They have 10s. Sadness. What did the other person call with? The other person called with ace high. So I did get an ace high call down. So if they didn't have 10s, that would have been sick value. Oh well. Sometimes the thing about 55-45 value bets is we're going to lose 45% of the time, but it can still be good value, right? You can't start trying to make thin value bets and then get discouraged every time your value bet gets called by a better hand. It's not a thin value bet unless you sometimes get called by a better hand. That's what makes it thin, right? Just make sure that you're making, a 60-40 thin value bet and not a 30-70, right? You're not losing 70% of the time. You're losing 40% and winning more than 50%. If you win more than 50%, actually, I think it's got to be like 52.5 because rake, but you want an edge, but it doesn't have to be. Yep. Okay. I guess we had all of that. Let's see. So Kevin says, oh yeah, Kevin E Poker, give a follow to them. We'll probably raid as long as the stream is up and going by the time we're wrapping here. Kevin's doing a very similar challenge to me, as I'm sure I've mentioned on many of these streams, but playing 90 consecutive days of and playing and streaming 90 consecutive days, 3 hours every day. I'm doing like an hour and a half. I've been thinking about making the streams longer, but the videos for YouTube shorter. I'm welcome to any feedback in that regard. I like the rhythm of waking up and doing this, and I think I've set a schedule that now people can follow and understand, but at the same time, I kind of want to grow and do some different things. So if anybody has any feelings about those possibilities, I am open to them. Let's see. Kevin says, eats garbage food. Oh, eats garbage food. Not eats garbage and food. No, eats garbage food, doesn't sleep, never works out, on social media all day. Why do I feel so bad? Exactly. I have to say, it's tough with social media, right? Especially as a content creator. Like, I went a year and a half or so with just no Facebook, just at all. And I think this is maybe close in the cutoff. I believe I can play this. I think from the hijack it's a little too loose, but yeah, I went over a year without using Facebook, and like I just felt better, but there were a lot of aspects of my life that I'd also changed in positive ways, so it's hard to say. But then if you're trying to promote your content, it's like you want to find places where you can interact with people and put the content in front of the people who are going to be interested in it. It's king 8-6. I think the 8-6 makes this good enough to raise, even not suited to the ace. I'm not sure about that. I think it's a raise fold suited to the king and a raise call suited to the ace. I'm going to bookmark that in my brain and check it out after the hand. Hopefully that tune's not copyrighted. It's so ridiculous that like even just like singing a song to yourself like casually can be a copyright infringement. It's like, what? Okay, top and bottom paired, no backdoor flush draw, no blockers to the straight draws except the underwrap. I do think my hand's good very often here. I'm going to go ahead and c-bet. This might be a little much, but I'm going to mark the last hand for pre-flop. If I were to get check raised here, they can have like Jack 10 Queen, King 9, 9 9. Of course, they can also have 9 8 or a set of eights, but I don't think they're check raising 9 8, nor should they. The Ethical Panda says, I will redeem points for Broadway kicks, and then links a Broadway workout. All right, I'll check that out after the stream. Well, I don't know about that, but you know, whatever. I don't know. Maybe. I might specify in the rewards that they are martial arts kicks. Most of the Broadway kicks are basically like an axe kick anyway. King 8 has nothing to do with my hand. I can make a royal flush that's not really a royal flush. Now I have a nut flush draw. But it's a paired board. And of course I'm blocking one of my own outs. And they go full pot. And there's just no shame in folding the nut flush draw on a paired board when you're blocking one of your own outs, facing a pot-sized bet on the turn. I think that's fine. But yeah, axe kicks are basically, you know, just, well, a real axe kick is something different, but like a leg raise, you basically just swing the leg up and down, and that's pretty similar, except without the kind of side-to-side sort of, you know, rocket motion. I would like to have a bar, you know, maybe try one of those bar classes, and also just for stretching and for kicking. I've used this thing back here to put my foot up on, and you know, you want to do the side kick one too, so you're stretching the hips in various ways. Then you can go forwards and stretch the hamstring. IKEA is not made to be like ergonomic in terms of, you know, dancer stretches basically, or martial arts kicking, and I'm afraid the structural integrity of the whole apparatus will become compromised if I use it too much for those purposes. But you know, maybe we'll try it. All right, Jack 10 9 5 with a suited Jackson 5. I feel like yeah, I'm gonna fold with the limper. I was gonna say I feel like I could raise this on the button in general, but then scoping out the player on my left, 3 out of the 7 times they've had a chance to 3-bet, they have gone ahead and done so, and that would have discouraged me from playing this marginal hand. I think in high rake scenarios, we want to have a little bit stronger range that we're not going to do a lot of. I mean, I guess raise folding doesn't really get hit by the rake, right? So that's interesting. That's something to ponder, right? Your raise fold range does not suffer by getting 3-bet, because you don't pay rake, you fold. Good afternoon, cash in your chips, welcome to the stream. Welcome. I'm gonna type it in. I am on a 3-minute delay as usual, but not always, so as to, you know, avoid broadcasting my whole cards to the whole of the internet in live time. But never cash in your chips. We met over on Kevin E. Poker's stream, and welcome to the ZenMadman stream. We're playing some PLO100, which we do every morning at 10 a.m. Pacific. Although I'm pondering possibly mixing up my schedule sooner or later, but I really enjoy having constructed this habit of just doing the same thing every day, trying to just do it a little bit better each day. We will shortly be proceeding to the session review segment. I do a session review every day at the end of my stream. I don't have a bunch of tools for looking at solves of post-flop scenarios. I will at some point. I'm still very heavily focused on pre-flop. I think, you know, if you play the right pre-flop hands, you know, if you have a good selection of pre-flop hands, you play them with appropriate levels of aggression, and then are not a complete train wreck post-flop, I believe you make money in this game. I think that's basically, in a good PLO game, play the right hands pre-flop, don't be a train wreck post-flop, equals $, $, $, $, $. right? If you want to beat the higher stakes, now you've got to come with the goods pre-flop, but then you also have to like really understand post-flop on a deeper level. But I think just like not being a train wreck pre or post, you can make money in a game like this. This hand, I will open raise. If there's a limp, I believe I will ISO. Yes, the player behind me has been kind of aggro, but and the paradox is like this is a hand that I'm planning to call a 3-bet, I think, because it's double suited. Maybe not this one out of position. I've got bad suit, right? So I'm suited the jack instead of the king. I flop top 2, which is delightful. It's possible that I'm supposed to just like check range in a spot like this. And with the aggro player behind me, like I kind of want to just like go for the check raise here. Is my hand strong enough to check raise? I don't know. Let's do it. Let's do it. Feeling spunky. Panda says side to side, hips, core exercise to it. Yeah, that's true. That's true. You want to get these different kind of ways that you're moving. Okay, I have an open-ended straight draw to the nuts, although 2 of those outs will be clubs. And I have middle 2 pair, and I have a full pot bet from a tight player, which I don't like. I instantly regret my flop. Check back. I'm not too worried about the player behind me. Yes, they can have some things. I am going to call and hope for the best. I mean, I have 6 outs to the nuts. Now, that's an interesting card, insofar as it might slow them down with a lot of hands. If they bet, I'm certainly going to go ahead and fold. If they check, I can consider bluffing. I would much prefer to have a club in my hand if I were to bluff here. You know, they can have some kind of, like, I feel like this is a spot where I should exploitatively bluff, even though, like, I just feel like they have queen here a lot, and that river is very bad for it. Let's just do it. Let's do it. Maybe this bet size is bad. It's like too transparent. I don't know. Did I spend too long deciding to bluff? I don't know. We'll see what happens. I think the thing that I feel good about this hand is twofold. What? Well, that was obviously a terrible bluff. Wow. Okay, we're gonna check out that hand in a moment. I think I can raise this with the 9-8 and the suited ace. I will look at the okay. All right. King, Jack, 10, 5. They had aces. They had aces and the nut flush blocker, so they knew I wasn't value betting. Interesting hand. That's a very interesting hand. I'm gonna hit review on that. And I wish I could just copy the thing of what they had. Let me see. Let me try this. Let me try. Can we copy? How do we get? I cannot copy. All right. So I am then going to pop up a thing. We will fold this hand. It's terrible. All right. We're going to say ace of clubs, deuce of diamonds, 6 of diamonds, ace of hearts. Okay. So that hand was really interesting to me, and I'm going to start to wrap up the session, and we're going to do a session review and get into that. Did I mark it? I better have marked it. Yeah, marked for review. Okay. And actually, we're going to double-check pre-flop, just like because, and we'll double-check this other one pre-flop, but we're mostly going to talk about the post-flop. I'm going to try and keep the pre-flop notes a little more concise. Take a few breaths. That was wild. Okay, so this will be the final orbit. And I have to resist singing that in the final countdown song. But you can hear it in your head. The final orbit. It's the final orbit. All right, let's see. Kevin says, Kevin E. Poker, not to be confused with the other Kevin in the chat, who I will not say who they are, but they know who they are. They know who they are. Kevin E. Poker says, pick what works best for you. The hardest thing for me is to give a conscious no to things that don't feel right. Absolutely. I get multiple you should do this messages almost every day. Can't please everyone. That is true. I like to ask people what they want and try and get a sense for if there's people who want specific things and listen to maybe why they want those things, what they get out of those things, and then take that under consideration. And so if there's a range of things that I think, well, this might be good, this might be good, this might be good. And a bunch of people want this one, I'll do this one. But if I think this might be good, this might be good, and people are like, oh, give us this, give it this, and I'm like, that's not me, right? That's not what I want to do. So I think it's useful to know what other people want, but we shouldn't let it to drive us to do things that are wrong for us, right? So I totally agree with you there. Can't please everyone, and got to do things that actually work for you. I don't know. All right, so the Ethical Panda says, I hear that. For me, going out to eat with friends was something I missed most during the pandemic, so this was a really hard time. This is a really hard time when I suddenly can do that again. I'm giving myself a post-pandemic month or two before I start trying to get better about what I eat. Yeah, that seems, like sometimes, I mean, there's a lot of things in life, right? And sometimes it's like, yeah, I've got to do this thing now for a little while. And, then at this point, I'm going to begin kind of the next phase of like, okay, I've gotten to see people and interact with people and have meals with people, which if that's a super important thing to you, then that's a thing you should do some of, right? And then to later, our deuce 3 would have given a sick beat to aces. But yeah, we need to take care of ourselves in all the ways, right? Physically, mentally, emotionally, socially, and one another. I think this is a little not quite good enough. Okay, I think that's new heuristic to add to my list. When playing PLO, do not wreck trains. Yeah, that's a solid heuristic. Yeah, put it on the list. And then Kevin says, I was going to say, thank you, might have the best hand. I think you might have the best hand. Well, you were right. Kevin. I did have the best hand. Sick, thin limit hold'em value, right? That's what that was. Sick, thin value. So I guess I just went giving too much credit to. What do you think about the ace value bet on the turn there? The potting the aces. Maybe we can raise this. I have 2 pair. I have no suits. I think this might be a raise fold, but yeah. I mean, maybe I should have given more thought to like, do I have too strong of a hand? Like everything about my hand said this is not a good bluffing combo. But I was thinking about the opponent, and I was like, I think this opponent is going to fold top set like a lot here. Now, humorously, they might have folded top set without the blocker, right? I have a gutter, I have second pair, and I have a second pair that I can't use, and a blocker to the flush draw. I will go ahead and check. A 9 isn't a great card. A jack's all right-ish. Where now I have jacks and 10s, and if somebody didn't already have a jack, it's harder for them to beat me. Right, Kevin says, all right, I gotta go put pants on, streaming in 10. Yeah, you've got that shot where you require pants. I just go from the waist up, so like pants optional. I'm gonna check here. I think betting here could have been, it was a consideration, and like in hindsight, not letting this river roll off would have been nice. And now we're just gonna check, and there's still a chance that we can win. No real reason to assume somebody had a flush draw. Like, nobody put it in earlier. Yeah, okay. Nice hand. I let you get there. Last hand, and ace 9, 8, 5. I don't like having the extra spade. How close is this hand? I think it's close enough that having the extra spade, I can just fold it. Particularly at the end of the session when I want to review my hands. And how many do we have? We have 9 today. 9! And they call it a 9. Okay. The Ethical Panda says, I'm supposed to wear pants while streaming? It depends on your camera angle, in my opinion. But, like, it's not a bad idea, just in case. Just in case you have to get up to respond to an emergency. I am, in fact, wearing pants today. I guess that would be one of the downsides of streaming all of my poker play, is I would feel like, I mean, mostly just, like, doing the whole day in front of people could be more fatiguing, harder to grind as much, harder to play as well. On the other hand, it could induce a higher level of focus. I don't know. A lot to consider. All right, so I have all of these things ready to go. We'll just see how this hand plays out. I would have flopped the wheel, which would have been interesting. Very likely to be good. The turn, not so great. But then the river is nice, actually, because if somebody... It's like harder for someone to have 4 deuce or 3 deuce. Well, 3 deuce wasn't a boat before, so And they did not have a hard time having 4 deuce or 3 deuce or 4-3. So that would have been a lovely disaster. We close this table. We bring in the session review. And all right, just a straightforward, like, do I raise this here? And we'll check it out. Let's see. Cheese Bunny says, who needs to wear pants? You're just streaming the top half anyway. Exactly. That's my thoughts exactly. And then Kevin says, victory spins with no pants is a gamble I'm not ready to take just yet. Yeah. Kevin does these like victory spins. I have no wheels on my chair and I have a carpet, so I'm not quite in victory spin territory. Maybe I'll come up with some other kind of celebration. And then Panda says the Cheese Bunnies, right? This year I have perfected the Zoom mullet. Business wear on top, PJs down below. Yeah, exactly. All right, a lot of streamer information there. All right, and we'll make this a little larger, and now we will get into the review. All right, session review time. Let's open up the PLO matrix. It's open right there. I opened this in middle position. I think it's good. The deuce is a bad card, but I think the 8 and the 9 make it worth it. Yeah, barely. Okay, so this hand is we gotta open up that thing where we take notes. Ace, 9, 8. Deuce, double suited, good suit, is RFI from hijack, fold, 2, 3, out of position, call, versus 3 in position. Okay, so this is fine, and I think that's it for this hand, right? Just like everybody folded, nice. One of the nice things about having an ace when you raise is people fold more often. That's just how it is. And then we raise this hand, and I'm considering, like, what about this? Is this a raise? I think it is. It's bad suit, though, so it's still a raise. And it's a call, right? So we do call a 3-bet. Double suited, out of position, even, double suited is, what was this, 1 orbit earlier exactly? Or, oh no, there was somebody sat in. Is RFI in hijack. Call versus 3-bet. And then we'll broaden, say, King Jack 10 double suited is always RFI call in hijack. So we just know that. Okay, King Jack 10 double suited, cool. Doesn't matter what the other card is. We raise, we get a call, and then this hand is hilarious. So, I flop top 2 pair. It checks to me. I think, well, this is good. I can bet here. But I think my opponent is probably going to stab too often. They're a little aggro. Let's go for the check raise, right? Is this hand good enough to check raise? Not so sure. But, things like queen can bet here. Flush draws, maybe just like some 10x. I'm not going to have huge equity edges on any of these. I like having my backdoor flush and straight outs. I like having top 2 pair. I'm not beat that often because like 4-4 doesn't get played that much, especially by these players, right? The player who's out of position, they almost never have me beat here. Occasionally they'll have like 10-10 something, or like 5-5 ace-king double suited, something like that. But mostly my hand's really strong here. So I go for the check raise and whiff. Okay, fine. And now this player pots it. And I'm like, what do they have? I'm like, okay, they probably have queen a lot here, but I have an open-ended straight draw. Sometimes they're going to have a hand like ace, king, queen, jack, maybe, and then a 10 or a 5 is good, and actually my hand is good, and maybe we check it down on the turn, on the river, rather. So I decide, okay, I'm going to call this bet, and we'll play some poker on the river. And spoiler alert, we play some poker on the river. The river's a 7 of clubs, which brings, like, a lot of draws, right? It brings the flush, and the flop straight draws get there. No real reason anybody should be too afraid of, like, 6-8 or 6-4, but they're possible. So my opponent goes ahead and checks, and I go, oh, okay, they've got a set of queens, and they don't like the flush, and I'm looking at their stats. I'm like 11-5, like they're kind of tight. So like, I think this isn't the right hand to be choosing to bluff, but I feel like this is such an overwhelming, exploitative, like there's just such a clear exploit here. Like this player is tight. And they basically said they really like their hand on the turn, and now on the river, they probably don't like it that much. And the tighter a player is, the less creative I generally think they are. Granted, 19-hand sample size, they could be like 26-22 for all I know, and just have been running poorly. But I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna take a shot. Yeah, I have middle two pair, fine. But like, if they have a hand like queen queen or queen 10 even, I think I can get them to fold. So I'm just like, let's just bomb it. Let's just pot it. And they snap call. I'm like, oh, maybe it wasn't a snap call, but it felt like a snap call because I was like, And then it showed my hand, and then nothing happened, and then it mucked their hand, and I won. And so this was technically a value bet. It turns out that what they had was, where did I write it down? I wrote it down in one of these. Let's see, this note. Okay. So I'll put this in here. Villain had that. So they had aces with a deuce and a 6. So the 6 was blocking the straight, and the ace of clubs they had was blocking the nut flush. So that makes it a good bluff catcher. The fact that I might bluff with two pair makes it a less good bluff catcher. Now, should I bluff with this combo? No. I'm confident that this is not a good combo to bluff with. And I knew that at the time. I'd like to have a club. I'd like to unblock some of the like pair type things. Like I don't really want a 10. And so I could be bluffing here with like ace, king, jack, 9 type hands, right? Those would be interesting ones, particularly with a big club. I think that makes sense. I decided to go for a purely exploitative play here. And it worked in the exact opposite fashion. So this was probably catastrophically horrible against this opponent. Having said that, they called down with the ace of clubs. So basically, if my pot size bet here is very polarized, it's basically going to be nut flushes and nut blockers, and then like some bluffs, right? They have the ace of clubs and aces. They know I don't have the nut flush. So it's hard for me to have a lot of value hands that I really want to bet that way. Having said that, maybe a king high flush. If they check it to me, I can be like, yeah, let's just go pot. I don't know. So I think my play was fundamentally wrong. Their play was fundamentally correct, I think. I mean, we can say for a moment, like, if we go back and I raise and there's a call and then they flat, they're probably not supposed to do that with aces. I mean, granted, they had very bad aces. But wait, did they have a suit even? They had weak diamonds. So, if you're ever going to flat with aces multi-way, that's the combo, I guess. But like usually 3-bet. So that was weird. But yeah, I thought that was a very, very interesting hand. But it's possible that they would call with aces with the ace of clubs and fold top set with like no clubs. And so this could have worked as a value bluff, where I get them to fold some better hands that don't have good blockers, but I get them to call with some worse hands with good blockers. So we're just going to call it a value bluff, and yeah, totally expert. Okay, this one, I fold, and I think this is close, but a fold. We'll take a look. Taking a look. MP. Why is everything from the hijack? Every hand I'm in the hijack. I guess the moral of the story is I need to learn my hijack ranges better. Yeah, this is a fold. This is a clear fold. Okay. Nope. Okay. Queen Jack 10-5, single suited, clear fold from hijack. RFI, Queen Jack, basically 10-9-8, which is my jargon for a Queen Jack and any 2 cards from the 10-9 and the 8. If you have Queen Jack 9-8, like with the bad suit, you're supposed to fold, but this is easier to remember, and I think that'd be fine throwing that one in there. Okay, moving on. Let's see, do any of these have are these all going to be, yeah, these are all going to be pre-flop spots until the last one, so bear with me. This one I fold. We're just going to double check that. We'll keep them kind of tight, but this is how I do it, right? Every day after every session, I just go in the matrix and we do this, and we do fold this and make note, and over time we just refine refine our sense of what hands we're supposed to play. And gradually I'm going to try and add more heuristics aside from don't wreck trains. Ace 9, 4, 4 single suit is clear fold on the button. Yep, okay. Moving on. So that's just a confirmation, right? And then here, I get 3-bet. So the question is, do I call a 3-bet? I mean, I'm pretty confident in this open raise. We'll see. 9, 9, 8, 6. Good suit is limp call. Interesting. Okay, well, I'm not going to limp call with this rake. That's not going to be a thing. 9, 9, 8, 6 single suited is limp call, good suit, and raise fold, bad suit. So that's like, that says to me though that we basically want to put in 3 blinds with this hand. So I don't love raise calling in this. How much difference is the 9 suit to the 8 suit? I feel like it can't be that big. 9, 9, 7, 6 is a raise call though. I'm fine with this. And the board is just a disaster and we just fold. I don't see any merit to using this combo as a bluff. That player is fairly aggro. And because they're aggro, maybe I think I'm fine with it. I don't mind. And then here I fold. I think it looks kind of nitty, but not suited to the ace. I think it's easy to overvalue this hand. This is big blind versus button. Ace 8 single suited. Yeah, this is a fold suited with okay, so we're gonna say this. Ace 8, 7, 5. Bad suit is fold. Big blind versus button. Ace 8, 7, 6. Bad suit is call. As are ace 8, and then basically like 7, 6, 5, 4 good suit. So basically ace 8 with an ace high suit with any 2 cards from the 7, 6, 5, 4 region. Right, so that ace high suit is very important, right? And without it, we at least want a 3-card rundown and a suit. So that's a fold. Cool. So far doing pretty good in terms of pre-flop, I think. And this I raise, and do I get 3-bet? I do. And then I think I folded. I think that's probably correct. It's possible that I'm supposed to call this 3-bet, but I'm not. Oh, I am. And because I'm suited to the king. Although it's weird that the king and the queen would be that different. Maybe it's not that weird. Second nuts, third nuts. King, queen, 6, 6. Good suit is RFI call from button. Bad suit is RFI fold. So because I'm suited to the king, although I would say I would rather be king 6 suited, right, than king queen suited, even though I can make a straight flush with this. This, you know, it blocks the third nuts, should I make the second nuts. And it does block the second nuts, should I make the first nuts with like an ace of diamonds on board. Okay. 7, 6, 4, 3. This is big blind versus cutoff, right? Big blind versus cutoff. I think this is probably correct. It is. Yeah, we basically need a perfect rundown with a 7 high suit. 7, 6, 4, 3. Single suited is clear fold. Big blind versus cutoff. All right, we'll just leave it at that. I think a perfect rundown, I'm naturally going to say, like, yeah, I think I want to play that. And we will now get to the last hand of the review, which was one of the first hands that we had that we wanted to review. I'm going to scroll back up the chat and see. There was a question. Would you have 3-bet if you only had 2 clubs? Right. So this situation. Okay. I am technically. So there's a limper, there's a razor in the hijack, and now I'm in the cutoff with a hand that is generally pretty good as a 3-bet. First, I want to say, like, or I want to see, do I want to 3-bet this cutoff versus low jack or hijack? Like, is that a correct assertion that this is a good 3-bet hand, right? It looks like a good 3-bet hand to me, but in this scenario, maybe it's a bit much, right? Because my opponent's range should be fairly strong to be ISOing the hijack versus a low jack limper. So we'll look up single suited queens. Ace, queen, queen, 3 is actually a flat. So that's interesting. So ace, queen, queen, 3 good suit is call versus low jack is call in cutoff versus low jack RFI. Ace, queen, queen, 3 bad suit is 3-bet fold in cutoff versus low jack RFI. So, and then we'll add ace, queen, queen, 8 through 6, good suit, are RFI, are 3-bet fold in same spot. So what that means is there are a lot of hands similar to this one that are supposed to 3-bet. And you could say, oh, well, it's bad suit because you have the third of the suit. Okay, maybe. I would say that this is correctly against a low jack opener. In terms of balance, we want to flat this hand. So I'm comfortable with this from a balance standpoint, right? But then in addition to that, well, in terms of balance also, in addition to that, there's hands that are very close to this. So the ace, queen, queen, I correctly identified as leaning us towards 3-betting, but that 3 gives us like enough playability. I think that's what it is. Like if it's a 6, a 7, or an 8, then we don't have that great playability post flop. So we benefit more from the 3-bet and getting folds. We benefit more from the 3-bet and then having a lower SPR. Whereas playing with this, what's going to be a little deeper SPR in position with this hand that has a little added playability because we can make a wheel and get some value from that wheel. I think, you know, also the ace high suit, more playability, right? Whereas with the queen high suit, we're like, let's just 3-bet fold it. Here, the factor wasn't so much any of that, and it wasn't so much I have the third of the suit. I don't love having the third of the suit, and actually that might make me more likely to 3-bet it because it's going to have a little less playability. It'll have less equity as well, but the factor here was that we had this player who was rocking a 90 VPIP who limped in the low jack, and then there was a raise, which is like, you know, an isolation raise. But like, let's be real, this is PLO100. An isolation raise isn't really going to isolate people that often. And I just say, you know what? I am happy taking a flop with this hand against these players, right? And I want to play pots with that player. And yes, there's rake, but that player's like the special player at the table who I really want to play pots with. So that is why I decided to flat here. And I'm happy with that. And it turns out that the solver's like, hey, you're supposed to flat. I'm like, okay, cool. But that wasn't the reason I flatted. The reason I flatted was what I just said. Okay. So now we flop middle set, which is like, oh, hooray. I have a blocker to the flush draw. I have a blocker to the nut straight. But, you know, there's a nut straight. There's a second nut straight. That's, you know, 16 ways to make 10-9 and 12 ways still to make ace-10. So I'm not like, oh, I've got the nuts, right? No, I have a draw to a very strong hand. And I have the third nuts, which is getting crushed by the... No, I have the fourth nuts. I'm getting crushed by the third nuts, and I'm crushing the fifth nuts, and I'm doing pretty well against the first and second nuts. So they bet kind of small, and there's a fold. I'm like, okay, I'm getting basically close to 4-1 with a boat draw. And also I have 3 10s to the nuts, right? I can make a nut straight. And I'm blocking a little bit. I mean, actually, the Queen of Hearts doesn't really block the flush draw in any meaningful way because I would want a Queen of Hearts to come if I had the other 2 queens, because then I make quads. And a flush is not so good unless it's a straight flush. So I call. It seems like a very clear like draw to a boat. And then I get there and they check. And what did I bet? I bet half pot. So, you know, I could check it back and try and just let them make a flush, let them make an underfull if they have a jack. But I feel like this is a loose passive player. You know, they might draw to a flush anyway, even with the paired board. I think they're often going to call with a straight here. I could have tried to kind of milk it for more value, but I decided to just put the bet in, and I think that's fine. Mostly, I think pre-flop was an interesting part of this hand, as it was for most of the hands. There's really only that one fairly hilarious hand where I tried to bluff with 2 pair, and I got hero called by 1 pair. So that was pretty much the session. All right, thanks so much to everybody who's been watching on Twitch. Thanks to everybody now here in the future on YouTube. If you've enjoyed the video, give it a like. If you want to see more, hit subscribe. And if you want similar but different, you know, in some direction content, let me know in the comments or in the chat on Twitch. I'm open to suggestions. I'm you know, as I said earlier in response to Kevin, like, I'm not just going to do everything that anybody requests, but if people are more interested in certain things that are within the spectrum of things I'm interested in doing, I'll do more of that. So, yeah, thanks so much and have an excellent rest of your day. Cheers.